Thank you for joining us on our follow-up conversation with Amer Kasissi, who is the author of this book called Ambitious. And absolutely hope if you missed last week's episode, we'll put that link into the comments there so you can catch up, where we talked about the research and why it's so important to show up both humble and ambitious, and the impact that can have on you, your career, your organization, and your team. Today, we're going to get very practical. So I want to talk about, thank you so much for joining us again. I want to get very practical to talk about, okay, you've convinced me I need to work on this to be more confident, ambitious, and humble at the same time. How do I do that? Where do I start to work on that for myself as a leader?
Yeah, that's what we all need, right? We read the research and we're impressed by the research, but then what it boils down to is give me some take-home behaviors. So I'm going to share a couple of take-home behaviors with our audience today. The first one is what I call self-reflection with purpose. Okay, so we all experience successes in our careers. Let's say you get a promotion, or you get recognized, or you get an award, right? Or a salary increase, right? After we have that, we should celebrate. We should take the time, give ourselves credit and all of that. But we also should take the time to self-reflect and ask ourselves some really hard questions, such as, who mentored me as a leader? Who gave me my chances early on in my career? Who on my team right now is working so hard to make me look that good? What market conditions have contributed to my success? What luck has contributed to my success, right? So this is not about minimizing the success we've had. It's just about staying grounded and staying humble after the success, which is very hard to do. So that's one practice that I have, which is more about sitting down with yourself and thinking and reflecting. The other practice that I would highly recommend is to seek feedback. And we all know that we hate feedback. We might say we want feedback, and we go ask people for feedback, but very often we're not really asking for feedback. We're asking for attention or for validation. So we each need to find our own group of what is called loving critics. These are the people that love us, have our best interests at heart, but will not hesitate to give us tough feedback. And we need to go consistently ask them for specific feedback. And it's not like, oh, can you give me some feedback? Because what are people supposed to say to that? But rather ask specific feedback. Yesterday at the meeting that we were in together, did I listen? Did I interrupt others? Was I imposing my opinion on others? And do that consistently enough so that we can get enough data and find patterns in what people are telling us. And finally, when people share that feedback with us, not to get defensive, but to say, thank you. You've given me something to think about.
Beautiful. One of the things we do in our leadership programs is send people out on what we call a listening tour. And I think about that as a do-it-yourself 360, whereas as opposed to getting the anonymous feedback, you're going out and you're asking, and we encourage people to say, very specific, exactly what you're saying there. Be super specific about what you need, because that is easier, I think, than, do you have anything that would improve my leadership? Can be an overwhelming question for folks. That's a good, and when you talk about that, a loving feedback, I was thinking about, as you give feedback to your kids, you think about it in a way, not that your employees are kids, but my son, he gave his very first, he's 16 years old. He gave his very first keynote address on Saturday. And, I was thinking I was so deliberate about how to give the feedback, because of course, as a professional keynote speaker, I had a lot of notes, right? So where do you start? And you start with the love, and you start with this, and then, and I said, and let's not even talk about until tomorrow about what we could be some improvement. And then, I had to pick like one or two things that were very specific, because otherwise it could be overwhelming.
Yeah. But you made a good point there, Karen, about the connections between leadership and parenting. And you're right. It's not that we're treating our employees like children. No, it's that we want to treat our kids like adults. That's how I see it.
Yes.
I want to treat my kids like I treat people who report to me, right? Who are on my team. That's the analogy that I use. And that's where I see the commonalities between leadership and parenting.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting when we were doing this listening tour recently, we had one executive team who took it the most seriously that I've seen anyone take it, where every single person on the team, and it's not easy, right? Sometimes things get worse before they get better when you do something like this. So, how would you say, so I got feedback, it feels
Mhm.
uncomfortable. I'm not
Mm.
sure, but I'm hearing it enough consistently that it's a theme. How do you encourage people to process that without it taking down their ambition or their confidence?
Yeah. I think it starts with first with the people that you select to give you the feedback. These have to be people that not only do you trust their character, but also you trust their competence, right? These need to be people who know what success looks like, and they need to be people who are familiar with your leadership, that they're seeing you day in and day out, and as a result they have been observing you. So if we start with that, with selecting the right people to ask for feedback, I think that makes the feedback a little bit easier to accept and to understand. Now, it's never going to be easy. Your feedback stings. That's how it is. Myself, I'm a professor. My day job is I'm a professor, and we do course evaluations, and I seek that feedback from the students. But every now and then, when there is a negative comment or a suggestion for improvement, I just feel like it's an attack on my ego, and we all feel that way. The best way to process the feedback and digest it, like you said, Kieran, is not to overemphasize one comment here, one comment there, but just to look for themes, right? So it's not about this one person that said this and why did they say it and who is it, right? It's more about, well, what is the theme here? Okay, five
Mhm.
people said that I'm not a good listener. Okay, now that gives me some reason to pause and start thinking about my listening and start observing myself when I listen and start really understanding what is it about my listening style that is not meeting the needs of my team members.
Perfect. Oh, thank you so very much. We look forward to talking with you again next week, where we will be talking about how do you develop this ambitious characteristic, the skill sets in your team with people that
Mhm.
you're coaching. So thank you so much for being on Asking for a Friend.
Thank you so much for having me.